Welcome back to the live stream here, Twitch stage, back at the expo hall. Clearly the happy hour is kicking off, but we're actually happy to be here talking with the tree out of Tel Aviv. And so can you all please introduce yourself? Do you want to start first?
Yeah, sorry, we'll start first. Hi all, I'm Arthur. I'm a co-founder and CEO of The Tree. We're based in Israel.
I'm Eyal, I'm the CPO.
Excellent.
And my name is Shimon. I'm the CTO and co-founder of the company.
So one thing that's really great about your story is basically how you all met. Can you kind of talk about kind of history there?
It's it's a long story. I think it started when I started the AWS user group based in Israel in 2012. And basically back in 2012 to host a meetup, it was a huge pain, like a huge hassle. You have to arrange everything. There was nobody ready to host you. And Shimon was working as R&D manager for IronSource. And he basically offered to host one of our meetups. And that's how we met. And then I think 5 reInvents after and a few hundreds of beers, we became good friends. And that's how we met.
I mean, it's very unique to have one AWS community hero at a company. And here you have 2, which is fantastic. So thank you for your work in that space.
Thank you.
What led you to what you're building today? Can you talk about kind of how you got to this new project that you've begun?
Yeah, so I think 3 of us is best description of us is basically we are developer advocates, and we saw that problem from different angles from different companies. And basically, we saw that companies moving to the cloud, companies moving to the open source, company moving to use, microservices, and basically applications now built from building blocks. A lot of building blocks from we call it code components. So basically, it's open source packages, it's proprietary packages, or even cloud services like AWS. So we saw that people just they don't have any data how they're basically choosing or managing their code components. And we saw that they're basically listening to strangers on Stack Overflow and making decisions about their code components.
This is where you get a module that just does 13 spaces and that's it.
Yeah.
So how do you tackle this with the tree? Like when the product is launched, how do you go about solving that for customers?
So basically, we're starting with the catalog. So we catalog all the code components within the company. Basically, you can sign up with GitHub, and then we will create a map of all your technologies, Dockers, code components, open source, as I mentioned. And then we will also identify your developer expert. So you will know who is the best guy to talk to about different components that you have. If you have any question to how to implement that kind of a technology. And then we will provide on top of that a layer of insight, so we can actually recommend alternative packages based on your existing code base, or even recommended version for open source on different parameters. And basically, we're trying to help developers to make decisions based on the data.
And you talked about kind of looking at and inspecting these GitHub repos, and you have a really fun game going on right now at reInvent. Can you share what that game is and how people can participate?
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to share maybe the experience, how we built that. Huh? So it was a hackathon for 48 hours just before we took our flight from Israel to reInvent.
Which is about 48 hours.
Yeah. So we have a AWS challenge, so we're trying, if you're an AWS expert, just go to aws.tree.io, sign up with GitHub, we will scan all your public repos, and give you a score, depends on how many services you are using and how many times you actually implemented the service. So if you feel that you are AWS experts, just go on, sign up, and enter the game.
Can we, do you have some of the current scoreboards and stats? What was surprising to me is, clearly a lot of the technical evangelists from AWS made it up on a scoreboard, but there were a lot of customers who were neck and neck with some of our top tech evangelists. So it was really impressive to see, and this is insight that we never had before.
I think that one thing that is important to emphasize, and this is coming from 2 angles. So one of them is why we did this challenge, and it's connected to the user group that we are leading in Israel. Because we had customers coming to our meetups and asking us, is there anyone using Lambda, when it was just announced, or I'm looking for someone who's using DynamoDB streams. I've heard it's good, but I want to know who uses that. And it was very, very hard to know. And then we met with larger enterprises. They had the same question, only within their organization. They would say, I know that you're using lots of services, but I just don't know who should I talk to. So we said, we'll make this challenge where we will automatically map your code and get all of the code components that we will be able to show it to different people. And then you will see which services are actually being used within different code repos.
And I mean, it's so true that you talk to customers who use Lambda, and then they haven't yet discovered API Gateway. And it's just such a common, great pairing.
Exactly.
And you can start making these recommendations to people based on what you see in their repos.
Exactly. So the example with the Lambda, the API Gateway, it's just showing you the picture how what's the problem, because it's same. Maybe to emphasize it, it's like if you're using Elastic and Logstash, why not use Kibana, right? But if you're using Elasticsearch as hosted, maybe you would like to use the Elasticsearch as a service on AWS, because for us it's code components also. So it's different layers of how would you like to manage. So you can write your code entirely for 100% for yourself, by yourself, and then maybe you can pick a few open source packages and write less code, or maybe you can just take a platform as a service or cloud service and just don't write any code, and just you don't have to manage it also, and it will be much more scalable. So I think that even the story that before we are really customer obsessed also as Amazon. So before we said that we don't want to fall in love with our idea. So before we wrote a single line of code, we actually met a lot of potential customers and design partners. And maybe Yar would like to describe the process we built to build the prototype to work with a design partner.
Yeah, I mean, community heroes talk all the time, and I'm really curious on what Yar has to say.
Yeah, so Arthur mentioned, we started the process backward. We went to the customers and we asked them, what's your main problem? And the immediate response that we got was visibility. We don't know what is going on in our organization. Who is using what? Where is using it? How is using it? So this was the main question that all those companies that we talked with them told us, and we started to building the solution around it. And because we're all developer-oriented, we all have this background, we're all developers, and we didn't want to build something that developers don't like. Something that's sitting on your CI/CD, and it's blocking all your code, and it's telling you, no, your code is bad only after you wrote it. And then you need to trash it all. So with our ecosystem, you can have this information during your development progress. And this way you can know how to handle all the code components you want to use.
It's also great because you can see what are the most used services or modules across your company. So where do you have experts already? So if you build something, do you have additional team members who can help maintain it? If you're not using something rare within your organization.
Most definitely. Yeah. Maybe I'll tell the other side. You always like to say, when you talk to people, the great benefits. But we met with companies, they told us that they were bleeding in production because there was some service that only one guy knew and he left the company, or there was a team and the on-call person just didn't know what was the service composed of, and he didn't have any expertise in a specific field in this code component. And they just didn't know the risk, and they didn't know that they had this problem. So by having a catalog that shows you which code components do you have in context to the people in the organization and who has expertise in what, can bring a lot of value.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the tech scene in Tel Aviv and why this is such a great place to be a home for Ditchery?
The Tel Aviv, it's the ecosystem in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I think that first of all, the AWS user group in Tel Aviv is one of the largest AWS user groups worldwide. It's almost 5,000 members.
Yeah.
So we're doing lots of technical events, deep dive, no marketing at all, no marketing materials.
Code on screen.
Yeah, so a deep dive with the screenshots of code and on your screen. So I think we have lots of R&D centers in Israel, from huge companies even AWS. On the other hand, we have a huge ecosystem of VCs from Israel, VCs from United States are coming to invest to Israel companies, in Israel companies. But also I think we have lots of talented people in Israel. And maybe part of it is that everyone is serving in the army as a mandatory, and you have lots of technological units there. So by the age of 21, you will have at least 3 years or 4 years in experience as a developer, which is different, really different from other countries.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting, and we see it in the community because we are the third largest user group, and we're a tiny country. We're only 8 million people, and we're the third group after San Francisco and India, which is kind of hard to compete with. And we have almost 5,000 people, and we see a lot of startups coming and sharing their experiences. And the ecosystem of the startups in Israel is very, very supportive, and everyone's helping everyone, and everyone almost knows everyone. So it's very easy
I think that the entire AWS community is very open, and that's maybe why we came to reInvent. I think it's our 5th reInvent. So we came here just to meet, developers and architects and potential customers, and to talk to them. That's the best place if you're building a DevOps tool or software as a service company. I think that's the best place to be because you can talk to potential customers, you have lots of technical content, so you also can talk about how to build your product because you have so many building blocks, code components that you can use. And I think that's why we're here also in reInvent.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how much time it takes to reach out to a bunch of different customers and get feedback of a product or idea. Here you can walk down a row, tap people's shoulders, say, hey, tell me if this is a crazy idea or not. And suddenly by the time you get to the other end of the hallway, you have a complete product ready to start building. That instant feedback is just invaluable for sure. What are some of the reasons you find startups like yourselves attending events like this? Do you find, is it primarily the networking aspect of it, or do you find chances to attend some of the technical tracks and events going on?
I think first of all, the content is the king. The quality of the content and the variety of different sessions that you have, but also sessions where customers are speaking, not just AWS solution architects. I think that's the difference between reInvent and the rest of the events. It's just zero marketing shit on the event.
Excellent.
And the meeting with the service teams is also very, very helpful because we can actually talk to different services and tell them what we're doing and get feedback from them, and they can help us understand if what we're doing makes sense, to also connecting with different services on AWS, and how can we bring more value to their customers, because almost any company today uses AWS, so it's very important to be aligned and to build something that is relevant.
And since it's rare to have 2 community heroes in a situation like this, for people watching who want to become a community hero, what guidance, tips, advice can you give for them?
Just do it. I will say just do it. Go to mira.com, open a group in your city or in your country if you don't have, and just schedule your first event and ask people for presenters if you would like to present, if you would like to host. I think you will have lots of people sending you emails with different talks they would like to give and things like that. So just do it. That's, I think, the easiest.
It's not just meetups. You can go help people on Stack Overflow. You can go build prototypes on GitHub. You can do a lot of community-driven stuff without even leaving your house. It's it's a global world. You can use the internet to do that, and it really depends on what you like. Maybe you like talking on a stage, or maybe you just like helping people on Stack Overflow, which is also okay.
Yeah, or writing blog posts, or making videos, or
open a Slack channel.
Yeah, many
build
Slack
a challenge.
channels.
You can build a challenge or a hackathon.
How would you go about that? If somebody wanted to do that, how would they?
We did it. We brought Game Day into Israel, and we did Game Day there was a loft in Israel, and we partnered up with the solution architects of the Israeli team. We actually had a Game Day in Israel, which was awesome.
For those unfamiliar with Game Day, can you describe what that is?
This is one of my favorite things here in this event. It's where you group up with your friends, and you have different teams who are competing, and each one is given an AWS account with very basic infrastructure. And then you need to manage your company your fake company through this account. And then you have new versions, and you have increased load, and you actually, it's a funny thing. They call it, the company is called the Unicorn Rentals, where anyone can rent a unicorn, and they decided to have 100 DevOps teams managing 100 accounts, which is like the theme. And then you need to be on the edge, because you need to be cost effective in one way. On the other way, you need to have your infrastructure handle the load.
And it's just an onslaught of different usage patterns and new releases that break or don't break. And it's like being on call for the worst shifts.
Exactly.
It's you leave with an increased heart rate, for sure.
Definitely. But it's really fun because you can actually think out of the box. Maybe I'll use Elasticache. Maybe I'll use CloudFront in order to speed up the requests. And then you can actually apply things that you do in the real world in the game.
Sometimes just you can spin off HA proxy and redirect the traffic for a competitor, and then you will save money and be very responsive. So it's a really cool game. You have to try.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. And when it comes to the tree, any idea timeline-wise of when it'll become available so people can start playing with us?
Yeah, so we're still in the stealth mode, and we will launch our product in Q1 next year.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to it. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
reminding
it.
us.
And go compete in the leaderboard. Try to see if you can top one of the technical evangelists here at AWS. There are some customers doing it already. Your public repos might have that also. Or go build in your public repos so you can start competing and bumping up your score. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And stay tuned. We'll have more content coming.